Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today I want to talk about some recent video game developments. The PlayStation 5 seems to be outperforming the Xbox on multiple games that have been released in the last little while. So, good old Digital Foundry comes out today with their Wild Hearts video that has them showing the PlayStation 5 running like substantially better than the Xbox Series X version, with the Xbox version missing like ambient occlusion and things like that. But then I got to asking myself like one little thing, because I played the demo on the Xbox version and immediately opted to buy that game on PC. Not only does Wild Hearts built on a brand new engine, but it is clearly not optimized on anything. On my 3080, I can barely get max settings at 1440p, and my frame rate literally ranges from 40 to 60 frames, 40 to 70 frames a second. So it's not ideal by any means. Like it's not ideal. It is there's constant issues with it. For the most part, I can get in there and play. I mean, it's still fun. I love the game. I can get in there and play and have a good time with it. But at the same time, yeah, there are issues with that game. Clearly, there's issues with that. So they also were talking about how Atomic Heart is running better. Well, I got on Atomic Heart today on the Series S version. Actually, it just got an update. It got updated before I made that video, but I took on that boss um, with that, and I beat him on the Series S. I was having trouble on the PC and the Series X, or whatever. Which one? I think I was running on the Series X, and I was having a hard time beating that guy. Well, I thought I had it on easy mode, but apparently I was doing it on normal mode. So and I completed that, with the melee or whatever. Uh, it's just kind of interesting, guys. Now I want you guys to look at this and understand this. This whole time that I've had this channel, I've had the PlayStation 5, I've had a Series X. I bought a Series S for the channel so that I could test games on the Series S as well. And I'll tell you, man, all of these games that have come out, that Digital Foundry, NX Gamer, any of these guys say that, oh yeah, they're running better on the PlayStation 5 at launch. For the most part at launch, yeah, probably not too far from the truth. But here's the thing, man. Once these games get patched on Xbox, I need you guys to understand this. Once they get patched on Xbox, they generally run better than the PlayStation 5 at a higher resolution or with higher settings, or there's always something that just kind of sets them apart on Series X. There are the outliers. There are a few games that will continue to run better on the PlayStation 5 just because the developers haven't went out of their way to try to optimize the Xbox version any better than what the PlayStation 5 version is. And like those few instances in those games, you'll have like maybe a 1 or 2 frame difference. Like seriously, it's not bad. If you have a VRR screen, you will never ever know that your game's not running at 60 frames a second. Like you'll never know that. To this day, Elden Ring is still not an optimal experience on the PlayStation 5, even with the included VRR support. It still runs better on the Xbox Series X. There are multiple games that do run better on the Xbox platform. But let's put this into a little bit more of a perspective. When those games launch on PlayStation 5 and they're pretty decently optimized, they're running pretty good, very rarely do we ever see them get optimized past that. Very rarely do we ever see them get completely 100% fixed. They usually can stay the same because they are using the max power of the PlayStation 5. Depending on the game too, the game engine definitely is going to play into the overall picture of this generation as they start moving more to next gen development cycles and development engines for these games. They will get optimized better. They will have better performance. But as it sits right now, anytime you get a game that comes out on the Xbox, if it's not optimized that great, you are going to see further optimizations that are going to generally make that, the better experience. There are some things that, you might prefer more on a PlayStation 5 or Series X, but this constant nonsense from the fanboy communities out there, man, like, let it go, man. Like, yeah, we get the fact that Digital Foundry, and they're gonna run these tests as close to launch as possible, and generally that's either going to show the Xbox version running better or the PlayStation version running better, or something like that. But then they're going to come back, because most of these games, like, seriously, man, Wild Hearts is almost unplayable on in certain instances, man. Like, it's a cool game. I love Wild Hearts, dude. I stand by it. I'm glad I picked it up. I love playing it. It's been a lot of fun. I did have to choose the PC version on that just because the console version was just not where I wanted it to be visually while playing that game, in the performance mode, because it does look, I mean, it doesn't look terrible by any means. Like, it doesn't look terrible, but I downloaded the demo on both, PC and the Xbox, and I was looking at the PC and I was like, man, I just want to play that like that. I just want to play that like that. So had I not seen the PC version, I probably would have went for the Xbox version. So when actually, I probably would have waited for a sale to buy the Xbox version, because I was just content with playing that on, the PC, because I have EA Play Pro. So I was playing that, and then I was checking out the demo on the Xbox. But I want you guys to understand that these console wars are kind of ridiculous, man. We're starting to see that the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are going to have a pretty comparable experience throughout this generation. You're going to get 1080p at 60 frames a second. You're going to get 4K at 30 frames a second. And then some games are going to be optimized better, and you're going to get 1440p at 60 frames a second. And you're also going to get some games, like your shooters and racing games, that are going to be 4K at 60 frames a second, and they're going to look pretty good. So all of this nonsense about the Xbox version not running as good as the PlayStation 5 version at launch, like, I get it, dude. I mean, it is frustrating. They want you to pay $70 for these games. They want you to pay $70, but then they launch a game that's clearly inferior to a console that has less power, and then they want you to wait for them to fix it after you've already given them their money. And then by the time they fix it, it's going to be on sale. I mean, you can already get certain games for half price, what they launched for, and it's frustrating. This generation, I will tell you, this is the most frustrating generation that I think we've ever went through with optimizations at launch. It all started with freaking Cyberpunk 2077, and here we go. This cross generation is really starting to it's really starting to affect the the overall landscape of these games, man. Like, it is, like, we are getting to a point as gamers where we're starting to get frustrated that these games aren't being optimized. And then you've got other nonsense that fanboys are spouting out about Baldur's Gate 3, not coming to Xbox, it's just coming to PlayStation 5 and the Series S, and I don't know, man. Let's address this really quick. Is the Series S really going to hold back the generation? I don't necessarily think so, but it is quite possible that some games are not going to have feature parity. Well, it is clear that some games might be harder to deliver feature parity, so it might make things a lot more stressful for developers this generation. I mean, it is possible. It is possible. I mean, while I don't see that being see, this is the thing, man. The Series S is more than capable of running whatever games they want to put on it, at 1080p, sub 1080p resolutions. And for the cost of the Series S, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing when people are like, "Oh my gosh, like, dude, if you buy an Xbox Series S, you have to understand that the max resolution you're going to get on games is going to be 1440p, and the lowest resolution you're going to get on games could potentially be sub 720p. Like, it could potentially be lower. Depends on how demanding the game is. Now, if you take a game like Wild Hearts and you look at it on the Xbox Series S, not even just Wild Hearts, if you go back to Stranger of the Paradise, like the textures and everything look like clay. Like it looked like clay. They didn't even try to do higher resolution textures for that game as well. And that really frustrated me because I'm like, why aren't you guys trying to utilize the Xbox Series S? And you can blame PlayStation and their market value and whatever else, blah blah blah. It's just a proven fact that right now developing on a PlayStation 5 SDK is a lot easier than it is on the Xbox. They can squeeze more power out of the PlayStation 5 a lot quicker. So when they start actually squeezing the power out of the Xbox Series X and S, you're going to see an improvement. Sometimes you're going to have to wait. These games they're they're scheduled to come out instead of, holding back the Xbox version for a little while longer to optimize it better. Because if they're sitting there and they're just focusing on the PlayStation, getting that all optimized and working on the Series S at the same time, and and the launch date comes and they just launch them both, then they're still going to be working on the Xbox version post launch. And yeah, dude, that really sucks and it is frustrating. I'll tell you what though, man. Um, with games like when Assassin's Creed Valhalla first launched, this was the big thing. I bought that day one on Xbox. I was playing it on Xbox One X, transferred my save over to Xbox Series X, and started playing from that day forward, like on there. I never once had a problem where I was like, "Ooh, gosh, this game doesn't look good," and I never questioned that. When I did eventually, grab the PS5 a couple months later, I ended up buying Assassin's Creed Valhalla on that as well. And to look at them side by side, I still think the Xbox version looks and runs far superior to what the PlayStation 5 version looks. And I've tested like certain areas at the same in the same thing, because believe it or not, my save transfers across all my platforms on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I can play it here, there, on my PC. I own it on everything. And to tell you the truth, it it just never stood out to me as like, oh my gosh, man, that PlayStation version's running better. Never once have I felt that. And I'm just like, wow, dude, they the Xbox version, like there's a good test place. It's in um up in the northern part where the snow is. You get up to that town up there, and like you could see screen tearing pretty good. Like you'll get like nice little frame rate drops in there. That's probably the heaviest place in that game, and it's a smoother run through there. And I always notice there's more NPCs, there's more stuff going on the Xbox version than there is on the PlayStation 5 version. So it is kind of weird that like Digital Foundry or all of these other guys that are doing these analysis, because let's face it, man, if you're trying to do analysis on all these different things, man, you're going to be sitting there trying to play through the same sections and trying to line everything up, and it's kind of hard, man. These games have different aspects of how they're going to like the time of day, stuff like that are going to make it kind of hard. And these machines are so dynamic in how they do things that I don't really ever take their side by side with the frame rate thing as at face value, because there's always something else that's going on. Maybe there's something that's not taxing the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X like it is the PS5, or the PS5 vice versa, or something like that. There's always some sort of there's always there's just too many variables, man. There's just too much dynamic going on in these games. Dynamic resolution, dynamic frame rates now. There's always something dynamic in most of these things that are going to tip the scales one way or another. Like maybe the Xbox is running, but it's holding a consistently higher FPS, but you don't really hear them talking about that no more. You don't really they try to pawn it off as they're both running the exact same, because the dynamic resolution parameters but they'll always call out, like, hey man, well this one runs at like 582p on the series S or something, or drops to 582p. And I've told you guys multiple on this channel that those frame drops, when it's dropping that resolution, like it's literally like 60 frames in 1 second, and it drops two of those frames. you're never going to notice that. I have only on my PlayStation 5 is the only console that I have actively seen the dynamic resolution drop for long enough to actually see it. I was like, wow. I'd be playing like WRC 10 or something like that. And you'd go and you'd get close to the trees and you would see everything just kind of blur out. And I was like, wow, man, that's the only time I've ever seen any one of these consoles do like the dynamic resolution to where it dropped long enough to actually see it. And that was for a couple seconds. So that was over 120 frames that it dropped that low. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. But it does happen. But there's so much dynamic that they're never catching actual pixel for pixel, because these two consoles are gonna do dynamic resolution completely different. They're gonna have different things that are gonna make them drop and raise and whatever else. So it just never. Anytime the game has dynamic resolution and you're running a frame rate thing at the same time, like I don't know, because not every time that you run back through that same thing is it's going to be the same. There are certain places in Hogwarts Legacy that do tank the frame rate on anything that you're playing, even on the PC. Like, it just tanks the frame rate. So I don't know, man. I wouldn't put too much stock into it. If you're an Xbox fan, don't worry about it, dude. When these things come out, okay, here's the thing, man. This is basically the whole gist of this whole video. None of these games are coming out optimized anymore. They're just not. They're going to take more time post launch to optimize these games to get them running better on your hardware. You're going to have games that are going to need fixing on PS5, Series X, Series S, PC. You're not getting an optimal experience at launch anymore. Like, you're not getting that. Hopefully with all of them going union, that'll change, but you're not getting an optimal experience. So it is good to watch these videos and listen to the YouTubers and whatever else when they talk about this stuff, because but here's the thing, man. It is good to watch them, and then you can decide, hey, man, is that something that I'm willing to put up with until they fix it? Is that good to pay full price for? Or you can, decide, hey, man, I'm going to wait until it goes on sale. But the thing is most of these guys that do these analysis rarely ever come back and tell you when it's fixed. Rarely ever come back and tell you when it's fixed. And I'm personally not set up to do all of those analysis to give you like that proper information, but I personally don't have a problem going back to older games and like doing another video on them and checking them out. As you can see, I did Atomic Heart today on Series S, and that one's feeling pretty good on Series S. That boss fight is a pretty hectic boss fight, and I was able to get through that on Series S and still maintain melee combat throughout that. So that was pretty cool. But that's pretty much the video that I wanted to make today. If you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, man. We'll see you in the next one. Just be happy with your games and try to enjoy them the best you can, man, because these things are not coming out optimized anymore, and the $70 is looking more and more every day like a scam. See you guys in the next one.